Welcome everyone to this week's Wednesday webinar. Today we're going to be talking about creating visuals in Power BI. And I put together a little agenda of some of the things that we're going to be covering here. We're going to spend most of our time within the demo. And for Power BI, visuals are everything that's going to be on the canvas. It's going to be the charts and graphs, things like that that you add. And we're also going to look at some non-data related things that you can add to the canvas and your report so you can see things that are static. And then we're going to talk a little bit about AppSource where you can get further visualization types. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the demo and take a look at creating some visuals. I am using the Power BI desktop for today's demo. So this is just a blank canvas looking at a new report that we'd be creating. I have connected to two different tables already. And there's a few ways that you can start creating visuals. You can just start dragging fields onto the canvas. So if we were to pull a field over here, Power BI would start putting together a visual. You can also, up on this gray toolbar, you can click on New Visual and it pops up a box, usually defaults to a column type chart, or you can choose from the visualization pane over here to the right-hand side. So when we're looking at the visualization types available, your graphs and charts, the out-of-the-box visuals are right here within this little visualization pane. For the non-data visualizations, you can see that up here. Let's go to Insert. And then you can see we have text box, buttons, shapes, and image. So the first thing I usually add to a report is an image, a logo. So we simply click on image and it allows you to browse from your computer and place an image. The image I usually put as a logo, but you could put other pictures if you have pictures of equipment or products. Any picture, any image saved can be used within your Power BI report. The next type we're going to do is just a text box. I usually like to name my reports, but I've also seen text boxes used if you want to put information, who to contact in case of questions, or directions on a report. Text boxes can also be used for that. So I'm just going to put, and you can change your font too. We're not going to do a lot of formatting, but just so you can see, I always like to make those a little bold. And I'm going to pull that up here. Another thing that you can add are buttons, and I'm going to cover this very briefly. I did do another webinar specifically on buttons and bookmarks back in October of 2019, so you could refer to our library if you want to know specifically more about using bookmarks and buttons, but we're just going to look at it a little briefly here today. You can choose from your button type, and I'm going to do a right arrow, and it always populates to this left-hand corner. I like my buttons in the right-hand corner, but it's really up to whoever's creating the report and how it works. The big thing with a button, and this is really the only little bit of formatting we'll look at, is when you put a button, if you want that button to do something, you do need to choose an action for the button. And when you choose to insert a button, over here on the visualization tab, you can see it's changed slightly. And I'm going to turn on an action. There's a few different actions you can choose from. What I'm just going to do to keep it simple is I'm going to do a page navigation. And because I have 2 pages here on my report, I'm going to say that this right arrow, I want it to take us to page 2. So now if I were to click on that arrow, it would navigate over to page 2. The other non-data related visual is shapes here. And it just has a few basic shapes that you can add to your report. I don't see these used a ton, but if there is a static shape or some type of aesthetic that you want to add to your report, you simply can add a shape, change its size. There's always lots of formatting you can do, but you can add static shapes to your report as well. So I think the main thing, that's just covering some of those non-data based visuals that you can add to your report. A lot of times it just can help a report look a little more polished, or with the case of buttons, provide some navigation. Buttons can also go to areas outside of Power BI. So if you want to navigate to an outside URL, that's something that is possible as well. So let's take a look at some of the different out-of-the-box visuals. And if you hover over any visual, it will tell you what it is. So the first one we're going to do is just a bar chart. So I'm going to select bar chart, and it's provided this little gray box for us to start adding our data to. And you can see on the visualization tab here, it has places for us to choose what's going to be the axis, the legend, value, and tooltips. You do not need to add a field into each one of these. These are just your options for that visual type, and the options do change based on which type of visual you select. So for this one, let's just say we want to see how much our customers are spending. So I'm going to look at our sales transactions, and I'm going to say I want to see the customer's name on the axis, and I want to know the sales amount is the value that I want to take a look at. So I want to be able to see what my customers are spending. And when you hover over one of the bars, you can see this is saying the full customer name and the sales amount. Now let's say I want another piece of information within that little box. That is where this tooltips section comes in. So let's say I also want to know who is the salesperson for this customer. So I'm going to drag the salesperson field in here. And now when I hover over it, it's telling me for this customer that spent almost $90,000 with us, Paul is the salesperson for that customer. Now let's say you pick a visual type like this. You know, we've looked at a bar chart. We thought, yep, that's the way to go. But maybe we don't like how this is looking. It is very simple to change a chart type. You just click and it will cycle through whatever visual you select. So go with what you think is going to work, but don't be afraid to try out other ones. I can always go back to the bar chart here. It's very easy to change. So let's add another common visual type that's used within reports, and we're going to do a donut chart. So I'm going to add a donut chart. And for this one, let's just say I want to know how balanced my assignment of customers are for each salesperson. So I'm going to look up at my customers tab here, and I'm going to say for the legend, I want my salesperson. And I want a count of the total customers that this salesperson has assigned to them. So for the value, I'm going to pull over customer number, and it defaulted to count, but if it was something that you wanted summarized different, really this isn't a number column, so there isn't an option for summing it. You can change between like count distinct or count just everything, so every cell that has data would be counted. And you can do this for anything for values. For example, if I go back over to this sales amount chart and I click the arrow for sales amount, you can see you can sum, average, min, max. The choices are different depending on the field type that you have for your value. But this one did default to count. Power BI does try and be smart in predicting what you might be looking for. So when I did this donut chart, I can see Sandra, she has 33% of the customers, you know, some of these other salespeople, not as many, but a simple donut chart. And one just kind of side note, we're not going to look into it today. It's going to be a future webinar, but you really can do a lot of customization with visuals as far as titles, even the colors, what appears at your data points. We'll get into that in the future, but this is just for adding some different visuals today. So we looked at a couple of charts. Another thing you can have is what Power BI calls cards. And those two visuals here, there's card and multi-row card. And this is just text of usually a single to maybe a few field values. So let's look at the differences for these. So I'm going to select card, and I'm going to say, I just want a number right away that's on the face of the report showing me how much have we sold. So for the field I'm pulling in, I pulled sales date. I want to pull sales amount, and you can see This is my total sales that I have. Now, if you want a little more information, a card is a single field. It's just one field. But maybe you want a little more text. So I'm going to switch it over to a multi-row card. And I'm going to say, not only do I want to see sales amount, but I want to see that by sales territory. I'm going to expand this out, and we see that now we have multiple lines of text here for our territories, and it's just showing us by territory what the overall sales amount is. So card is just a way it displays the text versus graph form. Really, it is personal preference, but I just wanted to show you guys some of the different options that you have. A big one that is popular with Power BI are map visuals, and there's a few of those. The first one being a globe here, this is map, and then there's filled and shape maps. Now, it is important to make sure that your data is categorized correctly. So when we look, you see address, city, specifically we're going to be looking at state here. So I'm going to click on the state field. And we've got some information now in this gray toolbar about this field. We see it as a text type field. We don't summarize it, and it is an uncategorized data category. So what I want to do just to make sure that all the mapping functions work correctly is I'm going to change this to one of these address properties. So this is a state or province, so I'm going to categorize it as such. When you have a field that is an address type field, if you pull that directly onto the canvas, so this is another way you can create a visual, Power BI usually does default to a map type visual. And this is just the regular map, so the globe icon over here. And you can see it's pulled location is the state. So now what I want to do is I want to change and add like different sizes to the bubble so I can see, you know, where am I selling the most. So for the size, I'm going to pull over, let's see, I want to do, actually I'm going to do, oops, I made a hierarchy accident. You can really drag things everywhere. So that was actually something good to show you guys too. If you accidentally drag something somewhere, you can always delete out. I created a hierarchy on accident there, so I apologize. Let's say first we want to look at how many customers are in a location. So we want to see where are the most of our customers. So for size, I'm going to pull over by customer number, and you see it defaults to count of customer number again. So I want to know, you can see here, I've got quite a large bubble. I've got 20 customers in Illinois. And again, I can utilize the tooltips. You know, I have 20 customers, but are they spending the most money, or how much money are they spending? So I can pull sales amount over to tooltips. And now when I hover over this bubble, I can see my 20 customers in Illinois have spent over $146,000. So tooltips can come in handy. Maps can be super fun for being able to quickly see. You can do sales amounts, where are your biggest spenders. You also could do who's having the most issues if you have like service case issues or service reports. The other couple of map options we have, and we'll just look through those here. The filled map, instead of having the dots, it's just filled in. You still can hover over. You can see like here in Alberta, one customer spent over $6,000. The shape map here only shows US states. So if you do international work, it's not something that would work for you, but if you like this format and you're working exclusively in the US, that would work. The other map function that they have out of the box, they do have this ArcGIS maps for Power BI. And it's just a slightly different look. This again only shows the US states right now. So if you're working fully in the US, you could use this. And again, it really is just personal preference, what works best for your company. So that's what a map function looks like, or a map visual. So we've got a lot of visuals on here, but maybe we want a way to filter the visuals so someone could look at this report and start filtering out the data based on a particular field. So Power BI calls these slicers, and this is the icon here with the funnel. I'm going to add in a slicer, And let's say I want the people that are looking at this report to be able to search by sales territory. So it's defaulted to a little list here. And now if I'm to select any of these, my visuals all update just to that particular territory. The one thing that isn't updating, you see when I'm changing this, is over here on this count of customer number by salesperson. And what that is the relationship hasn't been defined between this sales transaction and this customer table. I would just need to go in and define the relationships, and then that one should also change. Slicers can be super beneficial if you want people to be able to, filter through different field types. One thing about Power BI is that the visuals are interactive. So if I were to click on this dot here for Illinois, you can see that over on this visual, the ones that are within Illinois remained darker, and then the rest became more transparent. You can also see this list of territories went down to just territory 1. So visuals can be interactive. So my tip with that is when you're working with a slicer, make sure that's something that maybe you don't already have on your report that you could filter by simply by selecting that data point. And as you can see, I'm moving stuff around all the time here just to make our report fit. Also, you can, for flow purposes, I always tell people kind of think of how your end users will use that. When you have the brackets around your visuals, you can just drag them anywhere. You can change size. So you do see me doing that here between visuals. So now let's take a look at the difference between table and matrix. So sometimes you just need the text on there. Maybe you want to look at a table of data. You want to see some of these visuals, but you want to be able to select on a visual and have a table of data down here showing you all the customers for this salesperson or something like that. So what I'm going to do is we're going to look at the table here first. With a table, it is just dragging over the values that you want on that table. So if we wanted to see our sales transactions, we can do, I want to see the customer name. I want to see the date they purchased. One thing with dates, when you pull them in, the dates always default to a hierarchy. So you can see it's showing me the year, the quarter, the month, and the day. You can get rid of ones in here. So you can say, I don't need to see the day. You can just get rid of day. Now it shows us year, quarter, month. Or maybe you want to see the actual date itself. If we click on this drop down, there's two choices. You can look at the date hierarchy or the actual sales date. If we switch that over to date, now it's showing us that we've sold a lot in 2027 and 2028. But you can change to seeing the actual sales date instead of the full hierarchy. So this is how a table works. You can just pull over different values. Maybe we wanted to see salesperson, just a list, a simple table of data. And then if you were to start using your filters, it will show you a smaller table. Here are our customers and sales that were within this territory 5. So that's a table. A matrix is a little more interactive. So let's go ahead and do a matrix now. And I just got rid of the table for size reasons so that we can see these. So with a matrix, you have a few more options instead of just pulling over values. You can designate rows and columns, and the rows can be things that are collapsible and expandable. So let's say we want to look at these, and we want to know a little bit more about how our territories and our customers are sales amount by that sales date. We want to be able to compare those years. So for this, I'm going to add rows. I want to see first by sales territory. And then I want to be able to look within the sales territories at the specific customer names in here. So you see now I have an expandable within territory 1. I can expand, and here are those customers. And then I want to be able to compare year over year. So I'm going to take that sales date again and pull it over here to the column. And you can see right now it's already defaulted to just showing the years. I I'm going to get rid of the quarter, day, and month because I don't want to have that capability for expanding out. I just want to look at the year over totals. And then I'm going to pull the sales amount as the value. So you can see now, based on this, I'm going to expand territory 1. I can see the total for territory 1 year over year and total overall. And then I can even go down and see by the customers what they have spent over those 2 years and the total that they have spent. So matrices a lot of time, or matrices, I guess might be the better plural version of that, are a lot of times what people like to use on reports over tables, just because there is a little more interactivity and drill down options. So speaking of drill downs, we're going to go back and we're going to take a look. I accidentally clicked on one here. I'm just going to move all these over. And we're going to go back to this visual here. So we have one specific visual here that shows customer total sales amount. Well, maybe we want the ability to look overall, similar to what we did in this matrix, where we want to look at territory first and then customers within a territory. So when you're within a chart, you can create your own hierarchies, and this is what allows you to drill down in charts. So with this, we had started with customer name, but let's say we want to see it at the territory level first. So I'm going to take sales territory and I'm going to place it above the customer name here for the axis. And now you can see we have total sales amount and the salesperson for each territory. And if we want to know more, so I'm like, oh, territory 1, it's doing great. I want to know more about who is purchasing from us in territory 1. We now have these different arrows here on the visual, and I'm going to select this arrow to turn on drill down. As you can see, when I hover, it talks about drill mode is on. So if I click on this territory 1, it expands out and it shows us now, here's the customers for that territory 1. So you also have the ability to give that drill down method within charts, such as bar, column charts, line charts, a lot of them. Even your donut charts, you can turn a drill down on. You can create your own hierarchies. It could be multiple levels. If we wanted to have something like a divisional level and then maybe a territory and then a salesperson and then customers for that salesperson, you can really get very minute and just drill down quite a lot within those charts. So that's a brief overview of some of those out-of-the-box charts. Again, you can change them, you can try them out, look at the different aesthetics, figure out kind of how you want that to work. There are other visuals available as well. So when you click on this little ellipsis here, you can import from AppSource. It also has to import from File, and then remove a visual if you've added one you don't want to use, or restore default visuals if you've changed and removed visuals and now you're like, wait a minute, I wanted those back and I want to set it back to the default. So importing from File, that is if you have like a developer or a visual that maybe you purchased or things and it's stored on a file. But the AppSource has quite a few free visuals out there. So you can see there's quite a few here if you scroll down. It has a brief overview of what the visual is. You can see that, and you can add to your report. The one I'm going to add today is called Globe Map, and you just click Add, and it imports it and says it was successfully imported, and now you can see a different type of globe here. This is where all your imported visuals will appear. Now, the thing with that is that when you import a visual, you are importing it for that report. So if you were to open up another report or start a new report, this visual would not be on that report. You'd have to import it for that one as well. So let's just say I want to change this map one. I found this really cool globe map and I just think that's awesome. I'm going to expand it so you guys can see a little more how the globe map works. I don't know if this is really better. I usually use a lot of the regular map with just the larger size dots and things like that, but this is just another way that you could view all around the world. You can see higher columns in your more where you have more customers. But that is how you can import a custom visual. And there's a lot out there. You can definitely take some time to take a look through those, try adding them in, see what looks best. They're all free for the most part with those. I haven't run into any that I've had to pay for from AppSource yet. So that's definitely something you can feel free to try out. So now that is a rough and quick rough and tumble. Here's how you can use some of your different visuals. There are still a lot we didn't look at today, but feel free to try them out. If you're looking into more formatting visuals, that is an upcoming webinar. Or if you have any questions in the interim, feel free to reach out to me. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. And thank you so much for spending some time with us today, and have a great rest of your day.